Welcome to American Gypsy Podcast. I'm your host, Gypsy, and today I have a special guest, Lauren Callahan. She is a gut health expert, Reiki master, and owner of Goddess Health. Welcome to the show, Lauren.
Thank you, Gypsy. I'm really glad to be here.
Glad to have you here. I guess before we get started, you can go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit and what you do.
Sure, yeah. So as you said, I own Goddess Health, and I'm a health coach specializing in gut health. I used to be a therapist, but I really experienced in myself and saw the need in other people, just a real need for some very holistic healing. So I transitioned into the holistic health space. And I work primarily with women, some men, but primarily with women on their gut health. And then I also bring in a Reiki practice to really take that healing to a whole nother level, as we might say in Louisiana, to really bring deep healing and balance on every level, physical, mental, and emotional.
Mm. What did you feel like was missing from traditional therapy and what made you transition?
I loved therapy so much. I really did. But I had a personal journey of getting really curious about my gut health. And that was completely related to athletics. I'm a runner. I was having trouble. I wanted to see if I could break through some barriers. And so I heard a little bit about gut health, right? And some great success stories. I really began to have this question: is it possible that I'm a healthy person? I eat well. I run, right? I'm a
Mm.
therapist. I do yoga. I mean, I do all of the things, right? And I kept coming back to the question: is it possible that I'm doing all of these healthy things and my body is not able to receive it? And Gypsy, that was the best question that I've ever could have asked myself. And so I did go on this path of improving my gut health. And I did break through some really significant barriers when it came to athletics and running, triathlon as well. But in that process, I had several moments where I would stop and say, wait a minute, I don't have the anxiety and depression that I used to. And I hadn't changed anything other than my gut health. And then I'd have these other moments where I'd say, wait a minute, I'm sleeping now. And I didn't even realize that that had become an issue. I was completely unaware that I'd entered into this time in my life where I couldn't fall asleep at night and I would just stay awake with, racing thoughts or just be awake. And I always had that therapist lens of, well, I need to do a little bit more personal work, right? To help
Mm.
myself, calm those racing thoughts, calm that, that anxious or, that anxiety, right?
Mm.
Um, but then strictly by improving my gut health, a lot of those things largely went away. And then there were other things as well. Certainly, I did not have bloating and gas the way I used to. I didn't have gastrointestinal issues. I didn't get sick anymore. There were all kinds of things that gut health touched in my life. And this very much affirms what science is seeing these days, that the gut is your second brain, right? There's a really good reason that they say that it's related to everything. And I could see, I this was experiential for me, specifically, when you asked, bringing it back around to your question about therapy, this was very experiential for me to experience a huge improvement in my mood. But then I could see it on paper. I mean, I do this with all of my clients. I test their gut health so we know exactly what we're working with. It takes about 90% of the guesswork out. And I could see the improvement in, for example, my serotonin levels, right? Strictly by what I was doing to heal my gut. And so what I found was that I would be in a therapy room and a lot of people, but I'd say women especially would come, and there'd be so many of them that hit this point in midlife where they would say, what is going on with me? I've always been able to handle my stuff. I've always been a really strong person, and I have this anxiety and this depression and these panic attacks, and I can't sleep anymore and all these things. And so as a therapist, certainly I was able to help them, with very important, places in their life that needed mental and emotional healing. But I found myself over and over again wanting to say, well, what about your gut? Can we take a look at that? But that just wasn't part of my scope of practice. And even in therapy, a lot of times, I mean, certainly there was so much great work that happens, but sometimes it was very clear that therapy could only go so far. And the burning question for me was, what about physiologically? What is going on, right? Is it possible that your gut health is making this a complete uphill battle? And so I started kind of checking this out with clients outside of the therapy world. And what I found over and over again was that it was true, right? For so many women, truly their mental health, as well as other things, right? Like bloating and getting sick and energy, all those things, that they were struggling and that they didn't need to, right? That we could improve their gut health so that they didn't have to struggle anymore.
Mm. And what are some symptoms of a gut health issue, and like how do you test for it?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So when it comes to symptoms, this is kind of a frustratingly broad and elusive answer.
Mhm.
But coming back to the fact that like scientists are calling the gut your second brain, the reason is because it is connected to everything. It's connected to your immunity, it's connected to your energy, it's connected to your gastrointestinal health. It is connected to your ability to think clearly, like brain fog. It's connected to your emotions. It's connected to everything. So for me, what the things that I experienced before, as I kind of mentioned, I mean, most of it, all but disappeared, right? Like I did not have the health and the mental health issues that I had previously before healing my gut. And then Reiki definitely took that to another level. But as far as gut health goes, coming back to your question, what I would say is that because gut health is so connected to everything, really and truly, whenever you are experiencing anything that is a concern for you, right?
Mhm.
Mental health, chronic health issues, pain, like physical pain anywhere in your body. For me as an athlete, it was physical pain in my knee that actually spurred me on to want to check my gut health. How in the world is gut health related to your knee? Turns out it was, right? Like
Mhm.
inflammation and the ability to rest and recover were huge, and they were related to my gut. So anyway, the short answer to that question is, if anything is off, one of the first things that I would say is, let's check your gut first, right?
Mhm.
I've met women, for example, clients of mine who, had severe, chronic health issues. And just as one example, their doctor would prescribe to them, vitamin B for energy or something like that. Their body couldn't receive it, right? They couldn't get
Mhm.
better. Symptoms were being treated. They couldn't get better because their gut was not in a healthy place. What they needed was to heal their gut. And then all of the other things began to fall in place. And I'm not saying that that is, exclusive of medical treatment. It's not in a lot of cases, but healing the gut truly was foundational to everything else falling in place.
Mhm. Yeah, it seems elusive, like hormone balance, because if your hormone is off, it feels like everything, it becomes hard for the doctors to kind of diagnose what's wrong with you because it throws everything out of whack. And I did a deep dive. I was trying to balance my hormones a few years ago, and then I did a lot of research on how to best do that. And I realized it's a real epidemic in the US and a lot of Western countries. And a lot of it seemed to be attributed to food and lifestyle.
Yes, I am so glad you brought that up. Yes, nutrition and gut health. So gut health is not strictly nutrition. Nutrition certainly
Hmm.
is, primary, but there are a lot of other factors that are really relevant to your gut health, such as stress or sleep, to name a couple. But yes, your gut health and nutrition are so integral. with your hormones, right? It plays such an
Yeah.
important role with hormone regulation, and it's exactly like you said. It's really hard to pinpoint, right? Gut health goes to the source, right? That's also why I love Reiki. It's something that goes to the source of an imbalance. But if you're looking at trying to find the symptoms or trying to find a way to treat it, it's very hard to pinpoint. It just affects everything, right?
Yeah.
And I find in particular, because of exactly like you said, because of hormones, this is another reason why I feel that gut health is of such primary importance, particularly for women. Certainly men have their own health changes and transitions and struggles that they are dealing with, especially as they age. But women in particular, if you have not gone through menopause or perimenopause, you will. And often, women are in perimenopause and don't even know it. For many women, they don't have the clear sign of their cycles becoming irregular, more spaced out. That doesn't happen for a lot of women. So you can have
Yeah.
women for a period of 4 to 12 years existing in perimenopause and not even knowing it. And so they are having all of these new experiences, such as maybe anxiety or panic attacks or depression, or not being able to sleep, or just inflammation, not being able to recover, things just feeling off, right? Or pain or low energy. And it is possibly related to perimenopause, or just at least a fluctuation in hormones. And it's hard to tell, right? Like, these are the women that go to their doctor, and their
Yeah.
doctors say everything's fine, everything's normal. And they know that
Yeah.
everything is not normal.
Yeah. How does stress affect gut health?
Yeah. So, stress certainly causes inflammation, right? And so,
Mm,
I think it's safe to say, and most people would agree, stress is the number one thing that will kill you, right?
yeah.
And inflammation is right up there. When I think I said this, but one of the first things I do with my clients is I test their gut health, so we know exactly what they're working with, right?
Mm,
And one of the gut metabolites that we test is called xanthine. And xanthine is a huge reflection of stress. And that's physical, mental, emotional stress that you may be experiencing. It doesn't really differentiate, right? It just measures it as
mm,
stress. And when your xanthine is high, that means that you have inflammation in your body, and it basically disrupts a lot of different processes in your body, including your ability to process food and turn it into energy, for example.
mm,
It affects your ability to rest and recover, right? So it ends up disrupting a lot of the normal functioning of your gut, and leads to breakdowns everywhere, right? That can maybe be really relevant in your immunity, right? Like, when I improved my gut health, I could be around sick people and not get sick, right? I didn't have to be obsessive about, washing my hands or wearing a mask, or, keeping distance or anything like that. I just in general didn't get sick, right? And that is the
yeah.
power of gut health. And bringing that back around, when you are stressed, that disrupts your gut. And that leads to problems with your immunity, problems with your energy, problems with your mood, problems with certainly gastrointestinal issues. I mean, I find that women all the time are dealing with this.
Mm. And besides, changing your diet, I guess, what are some things in the diet that affect your gut health? Most common things, at least.
Yeah, so great question. So the way that I like to answer, if this is okay, I like to give an analogy, and
Mm,
I find that it helps me and helps some people wrap their head around, the gut. So the analogy that I like to use is that of a forest. So I'm in Louisiana, and I don't know what
mm.
it's like in Seattle, but in
It's
a
foresty.
Louisiana, okay, well, in a Louisiana forest, if you walk into a Louisiana forest, you know immediately if there's a problem. You can look at the forest floor and see if it's all torn up, right? And then you know that
Mm,
there are wild hogs. They are an invasive species. They tear up the forest. And if you go in and see the evidence of that, you will question the health of the forest. Okay.
Mm.
There are other things also that will make you question the health of a forest. So if I walk into an area that I think is supposed to be a forest, but I look around and all I see is like one tree, right? I'm going to
Mm.
say something is wrong with this forest, right? There's no population of trees.
Right.
Or, if all I see is pine trees, but I don't see any hardwoods, I don't see, any other type, I might also question the health of the forest because there's no diversity. Likewise, if I walk into this area and there are only deer, there's no mushrooms or bugs or rabbits or, a variety of trees, I would say this forest is out of balance. And so, in any one of those, if I see any one of those things, I would really question the health of the forest. Your gut is very similar, and I would think of the wildlife that we've been talking about in terms of bacteria. So your gut really thrives on bacteria. It likes bacteria, and it likes there to be a lot of it, likes a good population of bacteria, and it likes there to be diversity. Okay, so different kinds of
Mm.
bacteria. um, there are also things that you can do that will take your gut out of balance, right? And then you
Mm.
do not have a healthy gut anymore. And then there are things that will ravage the health of your forest, right? It'll bring damage, or sorry, to your gut, right? It'll bring damage to your gut, just like the hogs do for the forest. So, kind of breaking it down into those different categories there, maybe starting first with the things that can damage your gut. There's certainly a lot of things that can damage your gut, but some would include stress, right? As we talked about before.
Mhm.
That your gut is strong, but it's very fragile too. It's the lining of it is only one cell thick, right? So as soon as you start messing with that one cell thick lining, you've got problems all over the place, right? With inflammation, leaky gut, possibly,
Mm.
immunity. Your gut there's much of your immune system is housed in your gut. Your gut starts to think that everything is a problem, right? You have inflammation and it wants to attack everything, right?
Mm.
So the things that can, really destroy the health of your gut, that includes stress for sure. But things like too much highly processed food,
Mhm.
foods that are super high in sugar, and overuse of antibiotics. Those are, the stress, right? No sleep, or, too little sleep. Those are all things that can really destroy the health of your gut. And then as far as promoting the population and the diversity of bacteria in your gut, there are different
Mm.
things that can help that. Your gut really, usually in most cases, okay, and this is again why I like to test, because this is different for everybody. But usually in most cases, your gut really likes to have a fermented food
Mm.
once a day. It really likes fiber. Those are the kinds of things, and most people don't get enough fiber, most people.
Mm. Yeah.
But those are the kinds of things that surprisingly promote the population and diversity of bacteria in your gut. And then there are other things when we talk about the balance of your gut, right? So certainly, we're very familiar in our generation. You just have to go on Instagram for a minute, not very long, to see somebody is telling you to cut out this food group or
Mm.
cut out that food group. Or, certainly as women, we're more aware in this generation of our protein needs that, traditionally, historically, women have not gotten enough protein. So we're very aware of that. So we jump on board with, the protein bars and the protein shakes. Your gut actually is not really a fan of that. Like it wants a balanced nutrition. Usually, again, not necessarily for everybody, and certainly there are medical conditions and there are a lot of different factors. So this is very individual, but in general, your gut wants food from all the food groups, and it doesn't want you to get your protein from powder. It wants you to get it
Yeah.
from whole food sources, right? It really likes that. It breaks that down a lot better. So those are a few things that can really help with your gut. Again, it's very individual. We can talk about this later for sure, but one thing that I offer is on my website is a gut health assessment. It's kind of a quick assessment, but you basically get an idea of where you might stand as far as your gut goes. And then you have a chance to talk with me for 15 minutes to get you started on a kind of individual gut health roadmap. So again, we can come around back to that later, but that's because it is so individual. I like to tell the story of my husband and I, when I first tested my gut health. One gut metabolite, I mean, there are many, but one that showed up was 3-methylxanthine. And 3-methylxanthine is a reflection of caffeine in your body.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one, if you have too much of it, it can damage your gut health. Now I'm a tea drinker. I'm like, I don't even drink coffee. Okay. And my 3-methylxanthine was off the charts.
Wow.
And I mean, I was kind of angry. Like, why in the world would this be so high? I mean, I just drink tea, right? And, okay, sure, 2 to 3 cups. And sometimes, usually 2 tea bags per cup, but still it's tea, right? It shouldn't have been bad. And so when when I tested his gut health, my thought was, oh my God, this is going to be through the roof. It's going to be really bad because the man could put away some coffee, right?
Mm-hmm.
He drank a lot of it and he drank it really strong. But when he got his results back, it wasn't that bad. It was like a little high, but not that high. And I couldn't believe it. I mean, the amount of coffee that he would drink was kind of unreal at that point. So to see it a little bit high when mine was off the charts just illustrates how different your gut health can be than mine. Like, I can give you the general principle. Hey, you should probably cut back your caffeine. That would probably help your gut health. But the truth is that is not always the thing for everybody, right? There might be something else that's really pressing as far as healing your gut.
Yeah. And this assessment, is it how do you test? Is it a blood test or is it something else?
Yeah, it's so simple. It's a blood test that you get in the mail. So obviously, just today's day and age, I work with most people from a distance. You get this blood test in the mail, and it is just a pinprick blood test. That's it, and then you just mail it in. It's so simple. So
Okay.
nothing scary. I know that some people are a little worried about what a gut health test might involve, but it's very simple. So you send it off, and then I get the results and you get the results, and we create a plan based on the results for how to heal your gut, how to improve your gut health in a way that makes sense for you. Because certainly, as we said, one thing doesn't work for everybody. We're human beings, not robots, right? So
Yeah.
we can take about 90% of the guesswork out and create a plan that works for you to heal your gut. And then along the way, find the things that work and don't, and tweak and make it better.
And this plan, is it include like nutrition, uh, activity, like what does it all encompass?
Yeah, it encompasses all of that and more, because there's so many things that affect your gut health. Yeah, so activity, as you said, exercise, movement, those are things that impact your gut health as well. So for sure, that's one thing I take a look at: your nutrition, your activity, your sleep, your stress rate, your hydration, the um, yeah, things that you need to add in, things that you need to take out. So lifestyle habits, for sure. We take a look at all of that, because yeah, again, nutrition is huge, but it's one part of the picture.
Okay. Um, sorry, had a question and I completely lost it.
That's okay.
Oh, yeah, I remember. Earlier you mentioned Reiki. How does that play into improving gut health?
Yeah, so Reiki is an energy healing technique, and it heals and balances on all levels: physical, mental, emotional. It goes to the source of whatever needs healing. And it is something that can be done at a distance. A lot of people are familiar with Reiki as an in person practice. But it can be done at a distance as well. I initially received Reiki from a distance and found it powerful and effective. And, and that's what I do, right? That's how I give Reiki now, is through a distance. Um, you know, so Reiki in a broad sense, right? It heals imbalances at the source, right? We talked about earlier, your hormones might be out of balance. You might have stored mental and emotional energy somewhere in your body that needs to be released. And we certainly know that mental and emotional energy lives in our body in a very physical way. So being able to release that, which is something that Reiki helps you do, um, can really, really, really improve even your physical health outcomes, certainly as well as your mental and emotional health. For me, aside from all of those benefits, I also consider it, a really important, I don't want to say an adjunct to gut health, but maybe for lack of a better word, yeah, a really important adjunct, or something that really helps it to go even deeper. And I'll maybe explain part of my own experience, as to why I feel it is a really important part. So when I first experienced Reiki, and got into that path, you have to consider that for a whole year, for an entire year, I had been on this path of great gut health, right? Like I had spent,
Mhm.
really about 5 to 6 months really working to improve and heal my gut. And then, maintain that, right? And do all the things to keep a healthy gut. When I first experienced Reiki, I was told, and this is true, everyone experiences Reiki in a different way. No way is right. It is always perfect and complete. Some people feel something immediately. Some people feel nothing during a Reiki session. Some people, experience maybe a release of emotions, or notice things physically in their body. Maybe pain completely goes away or somewhat goes away. Um, they don't have the emotional reactivity that they used to. Again, everybody experiences it in a different way. But one way that people can experience it, and a way that I experienced it, was that you can have very detox like symptoms. And
Mhm.
so when I experienced Reiki, first of all, that day, I had the biggest headache I've ever had in my life. And it was like I was having this major caffeine headache, even though I wasn't detoxing from caffeine that day, right?
Mhm.
And then later on, I go to the bathroom and I have a very clear gastrointestinal detox. And again, remember, an entire year I've had this healthy gut. I have not once had, in that year, a bathroom trip, like this, right? Like I did before I healed my gut, but not after I healed my gut. And so it was very surprising to have what was clearly like a gastrointestinal detox, right? I don't even know what I was detoxing from, but my body was detoxing. And then after that, I'd say for about 2.5 months, I dreamed every night. And I bring this up because, historically, I'm someone who dreams. I know everybody dreams, but maybe wakes up and remembers that dream occasionally. And so to dream every single night for 2.5 months and remember it when I wake up was a very different experience for me. And once again, this is another way that your body mind is releasing whatever it needs to release, whatever
Mhm.
mental, emotional, physical energy it needs to release. And through all of this, none of this is something that you have to figure out or direct or even 100% be aware of. As long as you are open to receiving Reiki and open to it healing and balancing on all levels and setting this intention to release whatever is not for your highest good, as you are experiencing Reiki, your body mind knows how to release whatever it needs to release and knows how to get rid of
Mhm.
it. And again, as you can see with my experience, I mean, that can be very physical, it can be emotional, it can be mental. I've mentioned some very physical ways that I release energy. Then there were the dreams. I don't know if we consider that mental or emotional or physical or whatever. It honestly kind of felt like all of the above sometimes. But then mentally and emotionally, for sure, I come from a trauma background. I've dealt with anxiety and depression my whole life. And I've already told you how my gut health, improving my gut health, really helped me to find a new level of peace with that. I could see my serotonin levels increasing on their own. Um, just strictly by healing my gut. That was not with an antidepressant, which, by the way, an antidepressant can actually really mess up that process. That's we can get into that if you want to or not,
Counterintuitive.
but yeah, it does. It can cause problems. It can help you with your mood, but it can also create some other issues too, and particularly with your gut, which then affects all the rest of your health. But what I'm getting at is, as I improved my health, I could see the improvement in my serotonin. I could feel the improvement in my mood. But then once I started experiencing Reiki, I experienced the deepest level of healing when it came to my mood and anxiety, like I'd never experienced. I'm 43, right? Like
Mm.
I've been working my life to, heal, right? And to experience such a freedom from that, I can't even explain it. I can't say enough about it. So when, bringing it back around to, you asking what, how is this connected with gut health? I would say that these two things together are so beautiful in the way, and not just beautiful, okay, I say that word, I say beautiful, but truly powerful and effective at healing and balancing at the source, right? This is way different than going to the doctor and saying, I'm having trouble sleeping. And they say, okay, well, let's take this medication. And again, I'm not like, I don't mean to knock the medical profession at all, because there are lots of wonderful doctors who really work hard to get at the source and to heal at the source. They really do. And I'm so appreciative of those people in my life. But what I am getting at is that gut health and Reiki both, these are healing modalities that really work to heal and balance at the source. And when that happens, it makes its way out into every other facet of your life.
Yeah, definitely understand that because I know even when I did a deep dive on hormonal balance, it was like not just food, but you had to really deal with those stressors, life stressors, and things you can do to kind of relax yourself. So I could see how that could
Mm,
connect. And releasing any trauma is always beneficial anyway for your mental health. Would you
absolutely.
say there's benefit? Is it something you would do like one time thing, or is it beneficial to do periodical Reiki sessions?
Yeah, so certainly the more the better. I would look at it in terms of, you know, I would compare it to maybe food, for example, right? Like you can eat healthy food one day and that's going to be great, but really to have a, ongoing practice of eating healthy food is really, what is going to be beneficial in the long term. So it's really important to me to have a daily Reiki practice. That's important for me, but also just as a Reiki master, bringing Reiki to other people, it's really important to me to, to before you heal the world, you heal yourself, right? So it's really
Yeah.
important to me to make that primary in my life so that I'm better able to bring that to other people. What I would say is that, there's some people who will absolutely want to pursue that path of having a more frequent Reiki practice. What I do with my clients, and I find, is a great starting place, is that I will do, I work with clients over a 4 month period. And so every other week I will do a Reiki session, right? And that is from a distance. There are no bells and whistles to it. It's the most anticlimactic thing you will experience in the moment. My clients, you just find a comfortable, distraction-free place where you can rest and be open to receiving Reiki. Set the intention to allow it to heal and balance. And you set a timer on your phone, half an hour later, it's done, right?
Mm.
Um, so it's very, very simple. But yeah, every other week, we do a Reiki practice. However, for people who want more, then I just do it more, right? I'm always
Mm.
open to that and invest a lot of time in my clients. So people who do want it more, we do it more. And there's also, um, things that are supportive of a Reiki practice. So, for example, a daily meditation, right? It may not be a very, explicit Reiki practice in that moment, but there are, meditations that Reiki practitioners have historically practiced, very simple ones, right? Like nothing complicated whatsoever, that, people can do daily. And I, promote this with my clients as well. For those that are interested in doing that, you can do this daily meditation or do it sometimes, right? So certainly the more the better. With my clients, we at least do every other week, right? And there's always the opportunity to do it more.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the all the information and your time.
Sure.
Before we close it out, is there anything you would like to leave the listeners with, anywhere they can find you or anything you're promoting?
Yeah, sure. So you can connect with me on my website, goddesshealth.org. And if you go to that website, I am publishing a book this week. So I'm sure by the time this episode is out, it will be up and going. And that book is called Powerful, Not Tired. And in that book, I talk all about gut health and Reiki, and also what I call the Goddess First principle. It's a lot about our self care, how we love ourselves. So you can access that book on my website. Also, as I mentioned earlier, you can access your individualized gut health roadmap. So it's kind of a starting place, right, for taking a look at your gut, and then it can help you basically get going, right, and taking care of your gut. So that's all on my website, goddesshealth.org.
Okay. And for the listeners, I will have Lauren's information in the description. And as always, you can find us on any podcast platforms. The video is on YouTube. If you would like to be a guest, email americangypsy@gmail. Thank you for listening, and thank you, Lauren, for joining us.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
All right. Peace.